ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸੈਗਮੈਂਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਮੁਲਾਕਾਤ ਕਰਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਆਫ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਐਡ ਫਾਸਟ ਨਾਲ। ਮਿਸਟਰ ਐਡ ਫਾਸਟ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਬਣੀ ਹੈ ਤਦ ਤੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 38 ਨਵੇਂ ਦੇਸ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਐਗਰੀਮੈਂਟਸ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਇਲਾਵਾ ਇਹ ਅਕਤੂਬਰ ਦੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਸ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਬਿਹਤਰ ਟ੍ਰੇਡ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਬਣਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਦੋਨੋਂ ਹੀ ਮੁਲਕ ਤਤਪਰ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ। Mr. Fast, if you could tell us know that since the time your government has come, as far as international trade is concerned, what priorities are being made forward by this government?
Well, our government sees trade and investment as being the twin engines of economic growth for Canada. That's why we've embarked upon the most ambitious trade agenda Canada has ever seen. We've negotiated trade agreements now with 38 different countries. When we first came into office back in 2006, Canada had only 5 trade agreements in place. So we strongly believe that when trade negotiations are done right, they can serve Canada's long-term interests very well and ensure our long-term prosperity as a country.
So, Minister, as far as the Canadian dollar is concerned, we found that this has been rising and rising, but now it is stable. How did that impact the Canadian businessmen, and what did your government do to help them out?
Well, the Canadian dollar has been reflective of the strength of the Canadian economy. Because Canada has had among the leading economies in the world, especially during the economic crisis, a lot of people have looked to Canada as a safe haven for investing their money.
Right.
We've seen a recent decline in the value of the dollar, which of course helps our manufacturers and exporters. But we don't want our Canadian companies to depend on the dollar and the value of the dollar for their future prosperity. We want them to focus on making themselves more competitive by investing in equipment and technology. We are telling our Canadian companies we're going to open up new markets for you to allow you to be successful in markets that you've never explored before. We want to make sure that our companies take advantage of the tools that we make available, the Trade Commissioner Service, which that can help them navigate new markets. We want them to take advantage of Export Development Canada, which provides financing and insurance services for our exporters. And we want them to also join our trade missions that we lead all around the world. I've just announced that I'm going to be leading a trade mission to India, October 12th to the 17th. And we're welcoming Canadian companies to join us on that trade mission so that we can expose them to possible partners with India, expose them to some of the key decision makers in India. And of course, when I'm in India, I'll also be meeting with some of my ministerial counterparts.
Right. So, Minister, you have been to India a number of times as Minister. Probably this is your third visit over there. So, during the past also, you went over there and had some agreements. What has been the result? Because many times we hear that countries like India or China, a lot of bureaucracy and red tapeism.
Yeah, we recognize that doing business in India can be very challenging. And many Canadian companies have shared their experiences with us. When I engage with my ministerial counterpart, I typically raise these issues with her. But beyond that, we have been successful in negotiating a number of agreements with India. One is a social security agreement, which is in place. We also successfully negotiated a nuclear cooperation agreement amendment, which will allow us to sell nuclear energy technology and also uranium to India. And we're also negotiating a trade agreement with India. And we've made it very clear to the Indian government, we believe India can be a very productive partner of Canada's. India is one of our priority sectors under Canada's Global Markets Action Plan. And we believe that a trade agreement between Canada and India can remove many of the barriers that Canadian companies presently face when they're doing business within the Indian environment.
As far as relations with China, trade relations are concerned, where do we stand today, and is more progress being made of better relations between China and Canada?
Actually, Canada's and China's economic relations are actually very good. In fact, China has now become our second largest trading partner on a country-to-country basis. Last year, our bilateral trade was somewhere in the order of $73 billion. And that was up another 5% from the previous year. What we've encouraged China to focus on is making sure that trade becomes more balanced, because it tends to be focused more on Chinese exports as opposed to Canadian exports into China.
Right.
We believe there needs to be a rebalancing of that relationship, but at the same time, we're also making significant progress in opening up the market in China for Canadian exporters. For example, products like Canadian cherries. We're hoping to open up the market to Canadian blueberries next year. And we continue to make progress in many different areas. So this is a very important relationship for us.
Right. And as you're going in October to India, this time, what is your major focus of the trade mission?
We're focusing on a number of sectors. One of the sectors is infrastructure, including transportation. Another one is energy security. We know that India requires long-term energy security to be able to drive its economic and industrial growth.
Right.
Canada is an energy superpower. Natural gas, oil, coal. We're also a world leader in solar and wind technology.
Right.
We can share that expertise with Indian companies. Another sector that we're focused on is agri-food, food security.
Right.
Canada is a world leader in things such as cold storage and dry storage, and we know a very significant amount of the Indian harvest goes to waste. That doesn't have to be the case. We have the technologies to be able to address that challenge. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention education, which Canada is arguably the world leader in. We know that India has a very ambitious, if not audacious, plan to educate its youth.
Right.
They're going to need help. We can help. Canada has some of the best universities in the world. We have some of the best technical institutions in the world. So we've offered to the Indian government the opportunity to work with us in partnership to help develop that educational expertise within India. And then finally, I would be remiss if I didn't mention healthcare and life sciences, which again Canada is a leader in.
Right.
We know there's a growing market for quality healthcare in India. Again, Canada is going to focus on establishing the trusted partnerships that are going to allow Canadian companies to share that expertise
Right.
with India.